That afternoon, they took us with buses to a hotel, a small hotel, nothing fancy, but we had our own rooms, and we had a meal, a nice meal. They served us in the hotel dining room, and with wine and whatnot. And here we were, free people with a free meal, and everything was paid for by our uncles in Philadelphia. And we were waiting for a ship to take us to the United States. And we waited, but it wasn't such a bad wait. After all, we could walk around the streets, we could enjoy the sunshine, sunny Lisbon. And one day we were told that the next day the ship would be there and we could board the ship. Anyhow, so we were on the ocean at the end of March, beginning of April. Then the greatest day of my life arrived, April 3rd, 1941. My mother called me up from the cabin on our way to breakfast, and she said, "There, look ahead. The Statue of Liberty." And there it was. We were finally getting there. And just a few hours later, we docked in Brooklyn, New York. And we were able to get off the ship. Our relatives were waiting for us. And we had the pleasure of first meeting these people. I enjoyed going to school. I was good at it. I did my homework, and I was able to graduate from Central High School in 1946. So it was time to go to college. Again, this cousin of ours, she made sure that I wouldn't do whatever I had to do. They didn't have SATs at that time, but Temple had its own admissions program, and I took the admissions exam, and I passed it. The problem was, in 1946, the war was over. That was not, I shouldn't say the trouble was, but thousands and thousands of veterans came home from the war, and under the GI Bill of Rights, they had got free college educations. And they got first crack at all the open classrooms. So even though I was admitted to Temple, there was no room for me. And so I took the first semester as an evening school student, which there was room for that. And then the second semester, I got into regular classes at Temple. And even though I suppose my relatives would have paid for my tuition, I didn't do it that way. I paid for my own. Fortunately, at that time, it was $176 for one semester, and I had saved up that much. I had been working part-time at 40 cents an hour in a real estate office. How did I get that job? When my uncle died, the one who was primarily responsible for us being here, people came to call, some distant relatives, including one person who was a lawyer and whose wife was distantly related. And when he was sitting in the living room with all the rest of the relatives, he heard someone typing using an old-fashioned typewriter on the second floor. And he asked, he said, who's upstairs? Everybody seems to be here. And he was told that that's a young refugee boy that my uncle brought over from Germany, and that I was typing my homework. Afterwards, he asked me if I would be considering doing a little part-time work, typing some statements and letters in his office. I was thrilled. Absolutely sure, I would be happy to do that. I would be getting paid. And I was 15 at the time, and he paid me minimum wage, 40 cents an hour, which at that time was minimum wage. And I worked in the real estate office where he taught me a lot. Real estate, insurance, a little bit about the law. And I enjoyed working there, went there after school, and I worked from 3:30 to 5:30 every afternoon and Saturday mornings. And I earned average about $6 or $7. And I saved my money. After all, I was fortunate of getting my room and board free at my uncle's house. So I went and I continued working for this man, Ben Bellett, for many years. Learned more and more, worked more and more, and worked in the summertime many more hours, and eventually got myself a real estate salesman's license when I was 18. I wanted to be selling insurance also, but you had to be 21 at that time, so I did that a little bit on the side, and I was never caught. All right, after I got my insurance license, I decided that this is the type of business I like best, and I started a little sideline, and that was insuring motorcycles. But shortly after I started that, I got a little notice from Uncle Sam, and it was time to become a member of the United States Armed Forces. I was drafted when I was 23 years old, and I became an ordinary enlisted man in the United States Army, and I ended up in Korea. I spent over a year in an Army finance office of the 25th Infantry Division in Korea. April '53, I was discharged from the Army. I went back to live with my mother in Logan, Philadelphia area. And I had a lot of friends. We had dances and other affairs, and I met a lot of people. Social life, very nice. And then I went back to my job, and at this point I became a partner. I told my old friend Ben Bellett I'll be glad to come back to work, but only as a partner, not as an employee. And it was arranged, and I became a partner, and financially it worked out fine, and every other way it worked out fine. And in 1954, I met a young lady called Francine, and we started dating. And in 1955, we got married, and I'm still married to her.
I knew he always worked. He never was home one day. He always worked. He never was a spendthrift, from what I knew when I met him, and I knew he had a business, and I was happy, and we were in love, and we married.
And that was 1955. I was 27. She was 19.
You know what? When you're married, you have to give. You don't expect to get. You give, and everything you can possibly do to make your marriage work. That's how we got along all these years. And I mean, it doesn't seem like 60 years. It seems like half, maybe 30.
And in 1959, I branched out. I decided to specialize, and I started a company. I bought into a company called Cycle Insurance Agency, a company which specialized in motorcycle insurance. And working hard at this endeavor, I became eventually the largest insurance agency specializing just in motorcycles. And we branched out into snowmobiles and other recreational vehicles. And we did a job in 6 states. selling this form of insurance. In the meantime, the old real estate office had been sold, and I was just working full-time with my new recreational vehicle insurance business. And this continued for quite a few years until one day conditions changed, and in 2001 we sold. We sort of had to sell the business, but we sold it under fairly good circumstances to a company that we had been representing. And that was the end of that business, and that was the end of my working career. In the meantime, my son Michael had been my partner.
I worked with my father. The pleasure of working for my father and working with my father for 17 years. I never heard him raise his voice, never heard him curse. It's quite a fascinating thing.
And he ended up taking care of the final details of the business, and I started to retire, and that is the story of my life. I'm now 87 years old, and all in all, I've had an interesting life, but a very, very wonderful existence, and it's a wonderful life to be thankful for. Thank you.
There's something to be said from a person who comes here with nothing and gives everything.